here with you to worship the Lord together. I'm very thankful to God for the opportunity that I can be here and enjoy the fellowship with you. Indeed, it's a privilege that this morning and even in this evening, I'm very much blessed by the sharing of God's word. Indeed, this time I have the privilege of bringing greetings to every one of you from our little congregation in Vellore called Reformed Christian Church in Vellore. As you see in these slides, we stand the three principles. Our mission is evangelical and we are reformed in doctrine, and our church government is according to the history Presbyterian. And what you see, many of you know who I am, where I am coming from, and indeed I come from India, and you see the word Vellore in red letter at the bottom. That's the place exactly I am coming from. Maybe I would like to give you few quick facts about India. Indeed, many of you know what is India, where it is, and what are the things that India is very much popular for. And still I want to bring few facts. Indeed, India is the biggest democracy in the world, the second biggest populated country in the world with 1.2 billion people. Indeed, India has the 17% of the world population. To say briefly, if we reach India, actually we are reaching the 17% of the population of the entire world. You may be surprised to hear the fact there are 300,000 mosques are found in India for 15% of Muslims. Now you can also imagine how many more temples would be there for 80% of Hindus that live in India. Indeed, we know that Islam believes in one God, but it has 300,000 mosques in India. On the other hand, Hinduism believes in innumerable gods, and you can imagine if innumerable gods, how many temples there would be in India for 80% of Hindus. Maybe to briefly say, you will find a temple, at least one for 2 streets in India. Moreover, we also know that India is the country wherein the maximum number of languages are spoken. About 17 major and official languages are found. 844 dialects are found in India. Indeed, we are very thankful to God that in India we have the whole Bible being translated in 65 Indian languages, and also we have portion of the Bible is translated in 204 languages as of 210 AD. In fact, officially, Christian population is about 2.3%. But we Christians also claim a little more than this percentage. But according to the records, it's 2.3%. The reason why we claim little more, because many Christians, they don't declare that they are Christians in India. Because when a person declares his identity as a Christian, eventually he would lose all the benefits given by the government. So many Christians, they don't declare in their certificates that they are Christians. Well, though Christians are very less than 2.3 or 3%, and yet many of the great charity activities and the great activities that is needed for the development of the country are carried out by this little group Christians in India. To say briefly, 55% of healthcare is being given by or carried out by Christians and their organizations. About 60% of educational activities are offered to the country by Christians. 95% of women freedom and equality being propagated, proclaimed and practiced by Christians in India. Women in India in several ways are considered very, very little, not they are not very much treated equal. Their condition in several cases are very pathetic. Moreover, we also see that 70% of social welfare activities through various charity programs are carried out by Christians. Yet Christians are considered as betrayers of national faith and threat to the country, and are suppressed in several ways. For example, Dalit Christians. We know that in India the caste system is in practice, which is a curse, I should say. India is the only country, in addition to that, Sri Lanka. In fact, Sri Lanka was part of India long ago. So there we find the caste system, higher caste, lower caste, middle caste, and so many caste system we have. When a person from a lower caste, actually according to Indian constitution, the person from the lower caste is entitled for several benefits. Benefits with regard to education, benefits with regard to employment, benefits with regard to medical care, in such many areas. But when a Dalit Christian or a Christian from a lower caste becomes a Christian, and when he declares that he is a Christian, as I told already, he will be denied all the equal rights that are given to a fellow Hindu Dalit. Even more, in several places, Christians are considered as untouchables, especially in rural areas. But when we think of Indian Christianity, according to the tradition and church history of India, it is believed that the gospel was brought to India long before the gospel was brought to European and Western world. According to the tradition, it is believed that it was Thomas the Apostle who brought the gospel to India in 52 AD. And it is believed that he ministered in India for about 20 years, and he was then pierced to death while he was praying on a mountain still today, which is found in Chennai. The church tower that you see to your right is actually considered to be the place where St. Thomas was buried after he was killed by a Hindu Brahmin. Next we see that, in fact, after Thomas, or in the later early centuries, the gospel or Christian faith was brought to India by even Roman Catholics. Jesuits are very well known people in Indian tradition, and especially after the Church Reformation, Zenon Paul and his friend Henrik Blumenstock, they were the two first pair of Protestant missionaries to India sent or came from Germany. So during this time, actually India was under the rule of British Empire. So these two godly men, they considered a call of Danish king who asked some of the people to consider going to India and minister there. So Zenon Balk and his friend Henrik, both of them, they considered to go to India, and they arrived in India in the year 1706. And both of them worked very hard. In fact, Zenon Balk paid much of his time for the translation of the Bible, because he realized that only the truth can set the people free, and this truth must be taught and known by the people, otherwise they cannot be set free. So he spent much part of his time to translate the Bible, and so the first Bible was translated in the language called the Tamil. Indeed, I am coming from Tamil Nadu, and we are thankful to God that Tamil is the first language in which the Bible was translated in India. Among the 17 Indian languages, Tamil is the first language to have the Bible being translated, as well as Tamil is the first language, and indeed the Holy Bible is the first one to be printed in whole of India. So in acknowledgement of his great work for the literature, Indian government commemorated him by publishing a stamp in his name. And next we also come across William Carey. Many of us would know. Indeed, he is considered to be the father of modern missions. And he came to India and he did a very marvelous work, and we should be very thankful to God. To say briefly, and he spent much of his time to translate the Bible in several major languages in India. It is believed that he translated the Bible into 44 Indian languages. 44 Indian languages were considered by him, and about 6 languages, the whole Bible he translated in, and the remaining languages he translated the portion of the Bible. Well, in addition to the translation work and literature work, he also was an instrumental in bringing in the newspaper. He is the first one to introduce the newspaper in India, and through this newspaper, he grabbed the attention of some educated ones with regard to the greatest evils that were found in India, the evils such as offering infants to God by throwing the infant in the river Ganges. In those days, it was also a practice called sati. Maybe some of you might have heard about it when you have a chance to study Indian history. Sati is a practice in which when a husband dies, along with the husband, normally the husband will be cremated. That's the practice of Hindus. So when the husband is cremated, the wife also has to be burnt along with him, cremated along with him, alive. That was the greatest evil that was found when William Carey was ministering in India. So he was a very influential person by introducing the newspaper, and through which he called the attention of the people wide and large, and by the help of some of the British kings and governors, he was able to bring an end to the practice of offering infants being thrown into the river as a sacrifice to their gods, as well as the practice sati. Maybe to say briefly, one event which took place sometime around this time, a woman took 2 of her infants and went to worship her God. A missionary interrupted her on the way and asked her, "Where are you going?" And the woman told, "I am going to worship my God." "Okay, for what you are going to worship?" "I am going to pray for my babies." And in fact, the missionary found that one of those 2 babies was sick and weak, and maybe he thought she is going to pray for that sick and weak baby. After some time, she returned with 1 baby in hand, and then quickly he realized that yes, she has thrown one of her babies into the river. So and another shock was awaiting for the missionary, and he found the sick and weak baby was in her hand, not the healthy baby. So the missionary asked, "Where is the other baby that was healthy, good and active? What happened to that?" And she told, to his great shock and amazement, "I offered my baby to my God." "Why not this sick and weak? At least you could have kept that better one. You could have considered offering at least this one, if at all there is a choice to offer." Then she told, the answer shocked him. "You know, we give the best to our God. We give the best to our God, not the weak and sick." So this is a kind of faith in the heathen people have. Indeed, in such events, we also should think that how best that we give ourselves to our God, the holy, living and greatest one. The next, we also come across the Scudders. The Scudders, basically they did their mission work in southern part of India. When we get to know about them, about 42 members of 4 generations of the family, representing Reformed Church of America, they came to India. and especially they stationed the Vellore as their base. They stationed the Vellore as their base and continued the mission work in southern part of India. In fact, they did a lot of mission work through medical. They are considered to be the medical missionaries to India, and about 42 members, 4 generations, they ministered to the medical needs of the people. And in fact, the last one, Ida Scudder, she remained a spinster to serve the people. You know, the reason why she considered to study medicine and become a doctor, a medical missionary to India. In Indian context, normally the medical care to women should be given by women doctors, not by men doctors. So, several times Ida Scudder happened to see women dying, lack of medical help, because the men in India, they refused Ida Scudder's father or grandfather to offer any medical help to dying women. So this challenged her, and so she underwent medical studies and came as a missionary to work for the people there as a medical missionary. So next we also see another reality that happened in India, unification of churches. During the freedom struggle, the churches had to experience a difficult situation that the British government sent off all the missionaries in order to protect them, because during the freedom struggle we call it Sepoy mutiny. The Indian Sepoys or soldiers, they started to revolt against the British, and so they started to kill wherever they find white people, whether they are good or bad, whether they are serving the people or not. They began to kill white missionaries everywhere they find. So the British, they forced all the missionaries to go back to their home countries. So now the churches without leaders, they all came together and formed one church government. And they all came together and formed as United Churches of South India, combination of Presbyterian, Dutch, Reformed, Congregational and Episcopalian. So this was formed in the year 1906. Then later, Presbyterian Reformed churches have had hard time joining in the union. Well, in order to convince Presbyterian or Congregational or Reformed churches, they introduced a position as moderator. In fact, we see in Reformed tradition there is a higher position like moderator. So they introduced a new post into that. The reason why Presbyterian Reformed they didn't join this, because the church government was considered an Episcopalian tradition. So kind of Presbyterian Reformed churches had hard time joining, but eventually they joined and formed as one big denomination. And in the year 1947, Church of South India was formed. The union of the churches made the church strong and big, but at the cost of losing the Reformed or Presbyterian identity. Since then, the Reformed identity is lost in many mainline churches in South India. In fact, many mainline churches today are actually the works of several Reformed Presbyterian missionaries who worked, even giving their life in India. You know, so but today the mainline churches, they are the members of WCC, and there we find women pastors, and there is no reminder about church history. And so almost all the members of the mainline churches do not know anything about the very word Reformed or Reformed faith. And so this was my condition. I was brought up in a mainline Protestant church, but I had never ever heard the very word Reformed with regard to church or doctrine. So as of today, the situation there in India, Orthodox and traditional churches are going down, losing many of their members, and the attendance in the churches are very poor. But Pentecostal churches are growing more in number, because They are people's church. As we heard the word today, very often man is at the center there. Man is praised. Music is given the greatest importance. And we see the reason why these churches grow, because that eventually they please men. Whatever the man needs is given there. So churches today, many of those churches in India are people's church more than God's church. So yet God is at work and has been gracious enough to call His remnant to learn, love and stand for the greatest and glorious truth that was restored to the church during the church reformation in Christian church history. Maybe I should briefly say how I became a reformed Christian. In fact, I am privileged to be born in a Christian family, and my grandfather was the first one to accept Christ and become a Christian. And indeed, surprisingly later I realized that a missionary by the name David Coit Scudder, an young American missionary representing Reformed Churches of America, came and ministered in my little town called Periyakulam. And he, during his mission outreaches, he happened to cross a river. At that time, he was drowned and he died in the mission field itself. I am very thankful to God for such men who came to India, even to my little town, bringing the gospel of hope. Though I was brought up in an Orthodox Christian family, I never heard the word Reformed with regard to church and doctrine until I was brought in contact with Reverend J. Coatring, a minister from PRCA, who was ministering then in Singapore in 1993. Well, God, according to His sovereign grace, pleased to teach me this Reformed faith through the labors of this missionary, Jason Coatring. Being called of God with a burden to share this Reformed faith, I resigned my job as a lecturer and underwent a theological training at Presbyterian Theological Seminary in 1999 in Dehradun, India. And later, during the years 2002 and 2003, I had the privilege of studying under a couple of ministers from PRCA and a few ministers from Evangelical Reformed Churches of Singapore. And I am thankful to God that during the first year I could be able to take my wife along, because at that time only recently I got married. During the early part of our marriage, Kasturi and me used to have a lot of fights, okay, with regard to doctrine, this or that, what is true, something like that. But the Lord gave me the privilege that I can take Kasturi to Singapore, and instead of having Kasturi staying at home alone, I asked, why don't you join me and we together go and study in the classes. And in fact she willingly accepted, and she began to come and study along with me. And in fact she scored higher marks than me always. I never scored the highest mark in the class. And here you see my teachers. I am very thankful. You see the tall in the middle is Reverend Jason Coatring, and to his left you see him, right you see him, Pastor Love, who was taken into glory a couple of months ago. And you see Reverend Ari Degata, and he is a professor, I presume, in Reformed Seminary. And you see Pastor Shah Fugman, he was also taken into glory about a few years ago. And see Kasturi to my right. And here comes the picture, a part of Vellore, the city that I am coming from. Vellore is a home for 3.4 million people. I presume it is more than the population that Northern Ireland has, I think. So, what you see is just one side of the city, and there are other three sides. In fact, the biggest, if you can see, locate the big buildings in the middle, is actually the CMC hospital, the Paulraj hospital, established by the Scudder family members. Christian Medical College and Hospital. I'll speak few things more about it in the next slides. We'll go on. Mission work in Vellore. We began our mission work in Vellore in the year 2004 once I have completed my theological training in Singapore in Arts, Asian Reformed Theological School, which was the project of ERCS. Well, once we started our mission work, and in fact I did quite a bit of travel around, taking opportunity to preach and introduce the Reformed faith in mainline churches. We organized a few seminars and Bible studies around. So until 2005 we didn't have many converts, and I think in the year 2005 and 2006 ERCS had a split on the issue of divorce and remarriage, and such thing was also made an impact in our support and we had to continue the work without support, and at that situation it was very hard for me to handle the family. So Kasturi took a job and I too took a job as a part-time worker in one of the local secular offices. Still in the evenings we continue the mission work, but we were also wondering maybe the Lord has some other plan. So Kasturi is a very good, very talented student who was having her state first rank in her medical studies as a nurse. So many of her friends were getting jobs overseas and going, and so we thought that maybe Kasturi can get a job and maybe we can go to US. I can continue higher studies in theology, so that after some years we can come back and continue the work. So we were thinking of that, and in fact Kasturi was given a job and she cleared all the exams, requiring exams, that she can be able enough to work there. But I had my personal struggles whether to consider going or not. But at one point we decided prayerfully stop all the process, and so we went and had a meeting with the agent to stop our process, not to proceed, not to continue, not to process our papers. So telling him that we are committed to church work, so for now we have to be here. And in fact he was not happy, and many of our friends, even our family members, they were discouraging. An opportunity like this, a person coming from a third world country, would not be wise to refuse such opportunity. But with the help of God we decided to stay back, and in the next couple of weeks time we heard from Georgetown PRC of their desire to support us, support our family and the mission work in India, and we are very thankful for that. Since then, since the year 2007, Georgetown PRC has been very faithful in providing for our family needs as well as the mission needs. The mission continued in Vellore, and by the grace of God we organized a program called the Sola Gracia Bible Study Program. This program we organized in such a way to introduce the Reformed faith to Christians, those who are interested to learn the truth in Vellore. So we organized that, and this was attended by quite a few Christian students, and some of them who studied in that eventually became the members of our church, and they are with us even still today, and we are very thankful to God for that. And we also started to publish the Reformed newsletter, both a kind of bilingual, and I also was taking opportunity to preach in the local churches. Then eventually in the year 2007, by God's help, we started our own Reformed Christian church in Vellore. The Lord began to bless the work. As of now, we have 2 congregations or 2 churches in the city Vellore, wherein the Vellore city is a home for 1.2 billion population, and there the Lord has chosen us to stand for His truth. And there are 2 churches, Reformed Christian Church and Vellore Christian Church. In fact, both churches were called the Reformed Christian Church, but eventually the members in our English church, they felt that when they introduced themselves as Reformed Christian, some people, especially those who are educated ones, they have all kinds of ideas or bad ideas about Reformed faith. Or they don't really pay attention to study what it really says, but they simply have, oh, Reformed faith is something new. But actually it is the oldest. Okay? So it is the oldest, it is the historical, it is very biblical, but some people they find it difficult to accept when we say that we are Reformed Christians. So the members in our English church, they felt for good reasons, so they wanted to change the name Vellore Christian Church. So that's how we changed the name. And now we have 2 small congregations in Vellore, and there, by the help of God, we also have 5 house churches in the nearby villages. The urban area is actually bigger, wherein 2.2 million people are living, and Katpadi, Tholur, and some of the names may be very difficult for you to recognize. So by the grace of God, we are able to minister to the people in the nearby villages. In about 5 villages, we have house churches. The members in our church, the leaders in our church, they help in reaching out these villages. As of now, by God's grace, there are about 250 members, both in the villages as well as the city, and about 300 children being reached with the word of gospel and being brought in the knowledge of God's word, and about 25 young people are part of our village outreaches as well as the city church. And there is a big work, and with the help of God, we strive to serve Him through serving to all this. We also have about 6 part-time volunteers or workers. They help in the growing mission needs in Vellore. And in the year 2011, we had the GPRC delegates visiting us, and the first ordination installation of the office bearers took place in our church. So at that time you will see Pastor Hart was there, Elder Bruce was there with his wife, and couples were there, and we are so much blessed by their visit. And again last January 2013, and again we had the other delegations visit, and during that time Professor Berry Gritters and Professor Pastor Hart and the Elder Dean Walsing were there, and during that time we also had some baptism and confession of faith. And here you see our church, the Tamil Church, Reformed Christian Church in Vellore, and many of them are first generation Christians. Many of them come from Hindu background. Some of them come from Christian background, but once they have learned the Reformed faith, they could see the difference, and they could see how the Reformed faith is very much biblical. Having convinced of the reality, they joined us to be the members of our church. Next, recently we had the second batch of the office bearers in our Tamil church. You see their ordination and installation. And here you see the small gathering of our English church. In fact, the attendance is lesser than usual. It was taken on one of the Sundays, not a planned Sunday, to take the photograph. And you see the man maybe to your left again. He is a consultant, medical doctor. He is a consultant by the name Ronald, and his wife is not there because recently God blessed them with a baby. And some of the members are not here because they all graduated and gone. Before they were studying and under internship, they used to attend our church regularly. Some of them had gone for their internship in some other places. And our English church also organized a one-day seminar to reach out to the local Christians with view to teach them the biblical truth, the Reformed faith. And that's what happens in this picture. And next, the members of our English church, they also are showing interest in teaching our children catechism and all that. The way up, you have Dr. Liebuck, and he helps with the senior children. At the bottom, Dr. Kani we have, she helps with the teaching the junior ones. And you see Dr. Ronald with the children at the time of lunch fellowship. And here I give you a few pictures about the life in Vellore, what it looks like. You see, this is Vellore. You see the market, and you see the working people, you see a baker, a professional baker, and you see the roads in Vellore city. And here I want to speak few things about Vellore, which are the key features for the Vellore city. This is the fort, we call it fort, which was actually built by kings when they were ruling India before British, and later British took over this place when they were in India. In fact, in 1806, this is the place where the struggle for freedom, okay, we call it Sipai Mutiny. British call it Sipai Mutiny, but Indians call it the beginning of freedom fight. So this is where it actually happened. And then later on in the year 1856, it started in another city called Meerut. And then onwards, it was a huge struggle, and it was a continuous struggle for freedom. And in 1947, British gave India the freedom. And Vellore is greatly known for, mainly known for the hospital called CMCH Vellore with 1,700 beds, more than 100 years. It has been in the service of giving medical care to people all over, people from all over India, and even from the neighboring countries. They come to Vellore for medical care because the medical care given here is really very good. So many people come here, and in addition to that, CMCH trains innumerable medical professionals, and they are very good in service, and they are given placements everywhere. And Vellore is also being known for the university, VIT University, which is an engineering university with 2,000 students studying there, and nowadays it's really growing. I think it's about 30 years it has been functioning in Vellore, and students from all over the world come and study there. And indeed VIT is a good place where really we have a lot of mission work to do for the college or university students. One of our church members is working there as a professor, and we are looking for the opportunities to reach out to the students there. And he is organizing a kind of fellowship in his family, encouraging his students to come and join for a time of tea or snack. By that way, trying to share the gospel with the students. You can pray for that. And Vellore in the recent days, it is also popularly known for the Golden Temple. And this is the second Golden Temple we have in India, and the second one is we find in Vellore, the town that I am coming from. So too many people come to worship their own God, and in fact this temple was built by a eunuch. So people believe him that he is God, and they give him lots of money. With that he has built this golden temple. The one we have in Punjab, which is the oldest one, and the second one is in Vellore. Here we want to share with you some of the pictures taken in our village outreaches, house churches. So you see some of the villages, the pictures taken in the house church gathering in various times. Okay, the strategy in our mission field. Normally how we go and do the mission work in villages, in fact it is not easy to do a mission work in village outreaches. Normally the people in villages are quite, they are not okay, they oppose. So in order to have an opening or way into the villages, we first begin with a program called Tulip Free Tutor Program. And in this we try to teach free tuition for the children in the villages, and we try to help those children with their educational need, and through that we reach out to their parents. And this works very good in some of the villages, and wherever we had a better response both from children as well as the parents, and there we started to do local mission work, and which eventually became as a house church. So it's very helpful in such villages, and so we have village outreaches, and many children are part of our free tutor program. And in that program we also teach Heidelberg Catechism, which is translated in Tamil, and this one Heidelberg Catechism was supported with the sermons for each question and answer, the sermons by Reverend Norman Jones. Then we also have the privilege of ministering to the orphans at our Grace Foster Home. And Vellore is located in a place which connects 3 different states, and so there is a lot of transportation activity. So the lorry drivers or bus drivers, whatever, so they function like a carrier of this HIV/AIDS infection. So in the villages where we have our mission field, we also came across children being orphaned by parents dying of HIV/AIDS. So we thought that as a church we should do something for those orphans and semi-orphans, and that's how we started our Grace Foster Home program. So Tulip free tutor program has been a good instrument with which we can reach out to the villages. And you see the pictures of the children, and this is the beginning of our mission work in the villages. We reach the children first. Next, I want to speak briefly about the program called the Sola Gracia Academy, because the villages wherein we have the house churches, they remain house churches for quite a few years. So we thought that we should train our own men who can take the leadership in the villages. And so we have been training men through our Sola Gracia Academy, and through them we strive to reach out the villages, especially with view to make them eventually that these house churches should become institute church. So here you see the student and participants of our program, Sola Gracia program. And in the month of January, when the delegates came, we organized a 3 days seminar on church government, and it was a very great blessing. And the picture below is also another recently we took. These are the older batches, earlier batches, and these are the men who have expressed their desire to stand for the Reformed faith and continue to be with us and take up the leadership in our village outreaches. So kindly pray for these men. And here you see that the picture of our children and Grace Foster Home. Some pictures. Some children study in private English medium school. Some children study in government school. Indeed, in the middle you see Jason, boy, and at the corner, upper left corner, Joan. They spend more time with children, more than they spend time with us, and say they prefer to be with the children, of course. And in fact, Kasturi, the reason why we started this home is not only because of the children in need, but also because of it was the desire of Kasturi. Kasturi was brought up by a missionary, and that's what you see in this picture, Reverend David and his wife Esther, and they took care of Kasturi from her age of 4. Since 4 years till marriage, Kasturi was cared and brought up by him, and he had some friends in Germany, German friends, who supported Kasturi. With their help, Kasturi able to study well. And because of this, she was given a chance that she can get to know about Christ, and eventually for her faith in Jesus, when she expressed her desire to marry a Christian, that's me, she was excommunicated from the family and the society. And here you see, Kasturi loves taking care of children, and once in a while I too find some time to spend time with children. And indeed, last year Hope Start from one of the members of Georgetown came and stayed with us for about 2 months, and it was a great joy for us to have her stay with us. And here I have a couple of video clips which I think the children singing a song, I will sing the mercies of the Lord. I think you can't hear that. Anyway, I'll skip. Besides singing, they also learned music. They also learned music being taught by volunteers who have come from South Korea. A Christian charity functioning in South Korea send volunteers who can stay in Vellore and teach our children music. This is martial arts, and it will be very interesting to see our boys learning martial arts. Okay, I'll skip anyway, we are running short of time. When the boys learn martial arts, the girls learn music. In fact, girls don't need to learn martial arts because they are very good in martial arts, I believe. Okay, here we see our children with a three-wheel auto. This was actually sponsored by Heritage School, one of the Christian schools that belongs to PRCA. And with the help of God, with the help of the members of Georgetown PRC, last year we bought the land. You see in this picture, it's a very beautiful land, about 2 acres in size, and a known person who came forward to sell his property for a very cheap price. So we bought this land, and we look forward to have this land be used for our church, orphanage, and indeed our future theological training school. And here you see the boys in their holidays, they come and lend their hands to help in the building things. Right now we have constructed a small building in the land, and we also have constructed a small water storage, but children love to swim in that. We also want to teach children swimming in this. This was actually contributed by the gift of Heritage School in USA, which is one of the schools belongs to PRCA. Our service to the children was acknowledged by the local groups, media, and so a couple of articles were published acknowledging our service to children, and that's what you see. These are the national main newspapers, and we were also awarded for our service by the local Rotary Club, and presently we are also thinking of a project. The members of English Church, many of them are medical professionals, and they are aware of the fact that India is the country wherein the maximum number of abortions are carried out. So the members in our English congregations, they are very much concerned to help women with pregnancy crisis as well as to help infants. So a program called Bethel Life Center, we are planning to establish. About a couple of years ago, this little baby was brought to us by the parents telling us, we don't want this baby. We don't want this baby because we have already 3 kids and 3 girls we have, and this is 4th girl, and we don't want, because we are running a children home, and this particular couple from Vellore brought this baby telling us we don't want. So we want to do away with this baby. So at that time, a friend of us from Kodaikanal, somewhere nearby native place, long back they had asked for a baby for adoption. So at that time the Lord used us that we can consider this baby be given to that childless couple, and that was worked out, and the baby is with that new parents and being brought up as a child of a British couple. So here you see a shocking picture. This is the story. Such stories we often come across in India. Often children born out of wedlock or born illegally, whatever, the babies are thrown out or left somewhere or dumped in the dustbin. Such thing we often come across. So nowadays we are very much shocked by such thing. So we are striving to establish this Bethel Life Center with view to give a place of stay for women with pregnancy crisis and the infants, that they may stay there, deliver the baby and give the baby in adoption. Because in India there are lots of couple waiting for adoption. So some of the news very shocking. I don't want to explain all these things. Maybe straight away go for the prayer points and call for participation. So we, with the help of God, we had already translated Heidelberg Catechism. The translation of Belgic Confession is under process, and we also seek to translate other creeds and confessions, and we ask God's help. Please pray for that. And we also look for a missionary who can help by coming and staying with us, especially to help with our English church. And we also seek God's help in appointing trained men to take leadership in our village outreaches. So we also need support that we can establish such a tulip-free tutor program in other villages nearby, where we can continue our mission work. And we also need sponsors who may be willing to consider supporting children, those who are waiting, those who are in our waiting list to be admitted into our children's home. We are also in need of church building. We are also in need of building facilities for our orphanage, and this is a proposed building plan, and you can pray for this. So we thank you once again, and we request you to pray for us and be a part of our commitment to promote the great and glorious heritage of the Reformed faith in South India. Kasturi, a Hindu convert for the sake of her faith, and Jesus was excommunicated from her family and society. She is a graduate from CMC Girls with state first rank, brought up in a Christian children's home, taking care of her orphanage with the help of another 4 volunteers helping full time. And you see Joanne sitting, and Jason at the back is 11 years in 6th grade, and at the last me, Paulraj. And we give all glory and honor to God for enabling us that we may serve the Lord in Vellore. And indeed all these works would not be possible without the help and support of the church, Georgetown PRC. And at this time we want to acknowledge them, acknowledge their sacrifice for their faithfulness in providing for the mission needs. The mission needs are growing, and there is a lot more avenues that the member or sister churches can consider in our mission work. Thank you so much for watching.